viewers, my name's Cara. I'm your host for Tuesdays on the Pagan Perspective, and this week we are talking about gender issues in relation to paganism. Firstly, I want to say that I am wearing the same shirt today. I wore the same shirt today to work that I was wearing in the last LGBTQ Pagans video that I did for the Pagan Perspective. It's like I have a uniform or something. This week, the topic comes from Allie, who said they have a great interest in paganism. It seems to attract them. They have some family history with belief in little people, leprechauns, fae, stuff like that. And they said they are no longer male while not truly female, and in their transition they have found solace with things, and we addressed something along the lines of this. They feel there may not be a place for them. It took me a while to feel like I had anything to say for this video because we have talked about this kind of thing on the channel before, and in the description there will be several links. I went through our blog, the paganperspectivecollab.blogspot.com, which is the quickest way that I can search keywords and find out, like when I know I've done these things in the past, where are they? So in the description you will see similar topics covered in the past, and then in year 6 we talked about LGBTQ pagans. That was in 2014-2015. So that's the last video of that subject that I did for the collab. And in week 38 of that year, so the link will take you to the whole year, and then you'll just either Control F if you're on a PC, or I forget what the find function is on a Mac, but to find it, or you can just scroll down to the week number, which I have given. In week 38, the subs talked about deity and gendered terms for deity, talking about God versus goddess, stuff like that. In year 4, we did a topic on transgender pagans, which my video on that subject probably has the most to do with what I'm going to say today briefly. In year 3, the subs talked about masculine and feminine polarity in their paths, which is just kind of a related thing. And in year 2, someone had asked us about following the opposite gendered deities, such as men who are more drawn to the goddess and women who are more drawn to the god. So we've talked about gender-related stuff in a lot of years in the past, so I felt like I didn't have anything new to say. So kind of just what I want to talk about today is how I feel about this kind of thing in general. So Allie did not say how they identify in this, and did not give a preferred pronoun, so I hope it's okay that I'm using they, them, their. And, they didn't say whether they identify as transgender or genderqueer or even agender, so let's just talk about all of that. So where I am with that kind of thing is still very similar to the thoughts that I had when I did my video on transgender pagans, and I had talked about Dianic Wicca, and I have the script of that on my blog if you want to just read it as well. It's in the description to that video if you find that. So what I talked about then is basically that I am aware that there are some traditions within paganism, and even if not the whole tradition, there are some individual groups within paganism who are not accepting of other genders, of different sexualities, anything like that. There are some groups that are not accepting. Stereotypically, paganism as a whole is very accepting, and that's a lot of why when we talked about last year, 2014 or so, about LGBTQ pagans, we were talking about why there seem to be so many LGBTQIA plus pagans, and like why that overlap exists, and it's because a lot of paganism is very accepting and feels more accepting maybe than the religions that some of us were brought up with. So it's become a stereotype that paganism as a whole is very accepting of all these different things. Yet, what we know about stereotypes is that they're not true all across the board, but there probably is a reason that they became a stereotype. So we do know that there are individual traditions and individual groups that are not as accepting as maybe we feel we want all of paganism to be, or that we feel that we are. And sometimes when we feel that we are, so accepting, you don't realize until you meet a group or an individual who is like way even more accepting, like they're even further along that journey than we are, and then we're like, whoa, like I never realized, like I thought I was accepting, but I still have some stuff to work on too. I've been going through a lot of that stuff recently. I've been reading a lot of blogs written by people all over different spectrums, whether it be sexuality or romantic scales or gender identity, and I encourage that, absolutely. But before I get off on a tangent, I apologize. My basic advice then, or my thoughts on it then, are kind of the same as now. I feel that if you end up being drawn to a tradition or a style of path that to you doesn't seem accepting of who you are, then rest assured there are most likely groups along that path or individuals along that path who share the same views as you who are accepting of you. Because we're such a big community, any particular groups are not going to be representative of the whole thing. And that works both ways, right? That can mean bad things and it can mean good things. So what I was talking about then is that, if there's a tradition that doesn't include certain groups of people, there are probably some groups within that tradition who do. And so what I suggest is to seek out those people who do accept you, rather than try to force people who aren't ready to accept you, because you want to be in a situation where you are welcomed and you feel that you can be yourself. And, maybe further down the line, that'll be something where you put yourself out there and try to kind of push the edges for people and cause them to think a little bit more about things or push their boundaries, in an environment where that's safe and that's a thing that you can actually do and will actually be of some help. But for now, I would say seek out people who do accept you, and not everybody's going to believe the exact same way as you anyway, especially if you're talking about individuals. But you can find some like-minded people, or just find some people who like you for you and will help you explore your path and will explore their path along with you. And maybe you're not doing the exact same things. Maybe you don't believe the exact same things, but there's someone who can be a companion on that journey. And there are some traditions I feel that are doing a lot of work toward accepting all people. Reclaiming, for example, I know I just attended a witch camp in November, and so this particular group that I was with, I can't speak for all of the groups, but the particular group that I was with made it a point to, at the beginning of every meeting in the first few days that we were there, when we went around and introduced ourselves, we also told everyone our preferred pronoun. So we were very cognizant of that and trying to use that and helping other people remember when they were not using someone's preferred pronoun, and kind of doing that switch right there in the beginning. If someone would say he and they would say she, to kind of remind you. And also some of the liturgy is the word that comes to my mind, but just some of the things that you say when you're casting circle or when you're invoking deity or anything like that, instead of using the gendered forms of those things, they made it a point to use gender-neutral, genderless terminology so that it could apply to everyone just as human beings. Some people that I spoke with at camp, when they do it personally, they prefer to use kind of both binary gendered terms. When they say it, they'll say the feminine version and the masculine version next to each other. Whereas when we were doing it all in group, we used genderless or gender neutral as much as possible. So I'm sure there are other groups who are doing things like that, where it's just, the individuals in that group may feel that they want to be more inclusive, even if the tradition that they're under is not officially on that track. There are going to be people who are. And so I encourage you to seek out those people and to not be discouraged, because they do exist. And I'm afraid I don't have a lot of information about like what particular groups would those be, or like who's in your area, what traditions are these. But I feel like other people may have that information and they can share that with you, or putting it out there. I can try to put, right here in the comments, because the last videos that I did about this, the LGBTQ Pagans video, maybe it was something on my personal channel about Wicca and gendered deity. One of my videos, people put a lot of suggestions in the comments, and we were talking about whether there are any deities who are bisexual or genderqueer or, anything like that, that people could relate to. And people had a lot of information about that I didn't. So I encourage you to read the comments of other videos that we've done on the Pagan Perspective about this. See what else other people in this community know. because I don't claim to know everything, and like this whole video has basically been me saying, I don't actually know, these are just my thoughts, and that's okay with me. Other people have that information, utilize it. There were a lot of suggestions of specific deities that had some bisexual or genderqueer mythology surrounding them. There are some deities that people pointed out that have very gender fluid identities throughout their different myths. So if you're looking for something like that, the comments of those could be helpful. And just for me personally, I know that I talk about wanting to keep the multicultural approach in things as much as possible. That is, instead of the colorblind approach where we just say we don't see race, we just see people as people, and that kind of erases the fact that, you know, we do have race, we do have ethnicity, we do have sexual identity, and those things are important to us. We have gender identity, sexual orientation, things like that. Those things are important to us. Those are our identities. So I personally prefer the multicultural approach, which acknowledges and recognizes those things and looks at our similarities and our differences and says, isn't that cool? Like, that we are different and yet we are the same, and even if we are different and we're not really the same at all, we can still accept each other and still work together and still love each other and still exist together on this crazy planet. However, if that at this time is not something that helps you, don't listen to me. Do what helps you. So if what helps you is focusing on maybe not deity at all, if you don't want to think about deity as still too gendered for you or anything like that, or if that bothers you, which it may not, if you want to just focus on other types of concepts, other archetypes and allies and things like that, other energies that feel more like you can relate to them, find what it is that works for you and practice that and honor that. Everyone's path is individual. I do not know what everyone else's path is. I'm happy to read your stories. I remember the things I learned from you all, and it informs me and broadens my mind so much every single time, and I am so grateful for that. I will never be able to tell you what it is that you need to do. I can just give some ideas and suggestions, and I really hope that it sparks something and helps you in some way, but that's that. It's you. It's all you. So do you. And if you have some ideas about what I mean about like working with things other than deity, I've talked about that a lot before with people in messages. I'd be happy to talk more about that. But otherwise, there's a whole lot of stuff out there, a whole lot of people out there who I think would be willing to help with stuff like this. And these are things that we're all striving to learn more about. At least I am. I can't speak for everyone, but I am. So that's my video. I didn't mean for it to be this long. Check out the links in the description, and I will see you next time. Until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.